Welcome to our weekly Threat Insights group discussion. I remembered to add the accomplishments to the agenda because it happens once in a while. So there's A through F listed there, and we have one community contribution, so that's exciting. We're discussing moving these accomplishments from the weekly group meetings into the bi-weekly staff meeting, the threat management sub-department level staff meeting, because it means we have to run this query less often, and we get to share across groups. So you might not see this here on the agenda in the future, and if so, join your next threat management staff meeting and you'll see the list there. Jumping right in, follow up from previous discussions. I feel like this create JIRA issue from vulnerability. Oh yeah, okay, so Alan added here saying that the backend work is ready to be reviewed and merged for the JIRA issue creation. If there's any discussion needed, how to integrate this with the front end, he's happy to help. So Daniel, hi, welcome to the call. Daniel's gonna be working on the front end for this. I've asked him to take a look at the work that Alan's done around the spike, which included the implementation plan. I was a little bit confused when Alan started creating issues if that represented all of the work from his implementation plan or just the backend and database, which is what it looks like. So Daniel will be, I believe, creating the front end issues that are required for that. I'm also, and I think Matt is in a similar place, a lot of this Alan's already built. So trying to figure out, he has this great demo that he shared with us and a POC and a video. So figuring out what still actually needs to be implemented for that is part of the challenge, Daniel.
Cool.
That was our only previous discussion item. We've got some demos. Savash isn't here, but he merged the MR for introducing the new vulnerability trends chart, which also includes the navigation changes. So it takes the vulnerability list at the project level and puts it on its own vulnerability list page and creates this cool new trend chart to show vulnerabilities over time at the project level. Matt or Andy, do we have issues for applying that same style to the existing vulnerabilities over time charts on the other dashboards?
We could. We've been using the spark lines, I think, as a proxy. I think eventually we want to go there. Matt and I were talking about like a new list of metrics to start getting designs for, so that could be included.
Yeah, I thought we had, there might be one. It's been a few months. I'll have to go dig that out.
Yeah, I'll have to look back because I think we may have superseded the spark lines with that full chart and then moved those letter grades down. Maybe.
I feel like you've made this. This is like deja vu, but my memory's not that good.
Yeah.
We'll go double check on that.
Yeah. Since we now have our vulnerability port and security dashboard broken out, do we need to go back into the docs and change any references to the security dashboard that are for managing vulnerabilities?
Yeah, I think that whole page is going to need a once over. The biggest challenge is going to be getting everyone to stop saying security dashboard when they mean vulnerability report, because that is where it started and people still kind of use those terms. I will even play along just to not confuse people, but I think it'll actually be really helpful to have dashboards or for dashboardy stuff. The vulnerability report is where you see the list view, and we'll have that in all the places.
Yeah. It might actually be also helpful with the other secure teams to say like project level vulnerability report, because I know there's vulnerability report means something else. Like the SAST vulnerability report, I think.
Yes, thank you, Alexander. It is the Security Center now. That is an exercise in rebranding for another time, so I can stop talking about the group and project level dashboards and also the Security Center dashboard.
So Andy, to your question about doc updates, we should be updating the documentation as far as screenshots go and basic information. There might need to be kind of a deeper dive to see if there's references around that refer to it incorrectly, but hopefully at least the basics are covered.
Ooh, sorry, to go back to the first point, quick plug / request beg for Daniel. as you're working through the Jira stuff, any screenshots of the new stuff would be extremely helpful.
Gotcha.
Cool, thank you.
All right, so Alan ran with a suggestion yesterday and implemented a better version of our special references. You know, we had played around with using the plus sign, but that created some links to vulnerabilities that were not intentional in places like the increases of size on the MR reports. So we reverted that and we have implemented what he's sharing here. So this is pretty cool. It's just the brackets with the word vulnerability : ID. And Andy, is this something that we're looking to adopt in other parts of the product besides vulnerabilities? It's sort of a new syntax for special references?
Outside of secure?
I was wondering if anywhere else would be doing this with the identifier : ID.
Maybe the alerts that are coming from the manage team?
He can actually speak to that.
Yeah.
It's not, he didn't link it here. There was actually an issue that's been going on for a few months about how to do this GitLab wide. And it looks like the conversation actually went in a direction I wasn't expecting, which is moving all references to all object types and events over to this new model. And I don't know what the transition plan looks like for things like issues and MRs other than to support both, but this seems to be the chosen syntax for everything going forward.
Other people had special references and didn't have a special character they could use.
Well, and because you have to know all of the different special reference characters for each different type, that gets kind of confusing and it can be frustrating. So this is, the initiative looks like eventually over time, they're going to add both new ones and existing ones to this format. We're just first, since we were trying to get ours in and we ended up with a problem with the plus sign, so we kind of got blocked on it, and it just made sense to push forward once the decision is more or less made.
I like using the actual word, because honestly, I still get confused on which one I'm supposed to use for what. So I think it's pretty cool.
Cool. I didn't mean to ask that question just to Andy. Thank you for that information, Matt. Okay. Did anyone else have any demos that they didn't have a chance to put on the document? All right.
I would say the custom scanner stuff, but my local is currently broken.
We're excited for next week, Daniel.
Yeah,
I'm on the edge of my seat.
And I'll have one for next week as well. That intermediate screen between creating an issue for a vulnerability and being able to edit it. So be able to go to create issue screen first.
Cool. I'm already excited for next week. Okay, we have some items for planning breakdown. And last week we talked about the bulk updates. There was some ongoing conversation. So I did a little bit of abbreviation of the conversation from last week and I bumped it up to this week. So Alan had a suggestion around how to break this down. And I think we discussed quite a bit the undo versus the confirmation, and we have buy-in for moving forward to the confirmation instead of an undo. So that takes away some of the complication from the back-end perspective. Andy, we still need some mocks, especially with the text and stuff. I mean, clearly we can get started, but
yeah.
There.
Okay.
Okay. Savash is going to be working for the front end part of this, is the DRI for planning breakdown right now. Alexander, is this milestone supposed to be focused on container security? We're happy that he's here, but in general, I'm not asking him to be the DRI for these kind of bigger initiatives as we get into the planning breakdown and refinement, because you might get distracted. And Dave is still onboarding, so you're off the hook. So there's been some discussion about how how close the bulk update and the dismissal type reasons are. These two issues have some, I don't want to say overlap at all, but there are some changes to how we deal with the dismissal types in the future vision for bulk updates. And there's just some sort of questions about, does it make sense to, take care of one versus the other first? I know Andy put forth a really good suggestion around let's get these dismissal types updated and added to all the different locations, and then come through and change the way the bulk updates handle both dismissal types and comments. Tiago had a very different approach, but is unfortunately not able to join the call today. So we're kind of in this limbo right now of figuring out how to approach this. So we want to take a look at Tiago's suggestion as a group and see if that's how we want to move forward, as opposed to, well, both of those two suggestions. I'm happy to share in the meeting if you guys want to see it, or you can click on the link that he added in the agenda.
Yeah, I wasn't following too much of what Tiago was saying. And the proposal I put down was trying to meet the need of not removing that aspect of dismissal, which Matt, you mentioned was a minor concern. But it really just depends on how things shake out. So I can go either way.
And a lot of this is based on Tiago's troubleshooting around how this is working today. And I don't know, maybe between Daniel and Alexander and Jonathan, if you guys have insights into this, but it looks like today we're taking the dismissal reason that's set during the bulk dismissal and basically using the comment field to capture that. And there's some question of whether we're actually capturing the value that's set in the bulk dismissal, like the reason for dismissal today. So making sure that they're two separate fields. Go ahead, Daniel.
Oh yeah, so currently right now it's the reason that you pick is like a preset comment that gets added. So we don't have the dual, like a reason code and then a reason comment. It's just a comment right now.
Right. So it does capture it, is what you're saying, but it captures it in kind of like a text field that shows what that preset value, which preset value is chosen.
Yes, that's correct.
And going forward, we're going to want to separate those because we'll have comments associated with status changes, but only reasons associated with dismissals. So I think that's what we've identified as the bigger back-end work that's needed here, maybe even the only back-end work that's needed here now that we're not moving forward with the undo. I did talk to Savash about this morning. He's not happy with the fact that what's happening is that the front end is calling, for each vulnerability that's being dismissed, it's making a separate API call out to dismiss that, and thought there was an opportunity for some optimization there, especially from a performance perspective, to send sort of the payload up to the API saying, here are the 50 or 100 or X number of vulnerabilities and the details you need to dismiss it, and do it in one call versus 30 or however many vulnerabilities you're changing the status of. So that could result in some back-end work as well.
And this would be a GraphQL route, correct? Right. So I mean, we could just send an array of vulnerability IDs. So it shouldn't be that should be a fairly simple route to implement.
I haven't looked in the code in a while, but I think I remember that it is true that we send a request for every single vulnerability to dismiss, but that we have some GraphQL magic on the front end that batches all the requests that happen within 10 milliseconds into a single one. And so I believe that catches about 12 at a time, which is better than nothing. And I'm not sure if there's going to be that much performance improvement by creating a new endpoint to batch them all into one, but I have to verify that again.
So, quick question on this: if when implementing this, if for some reason one of them fails to change the state, do we want them all to fail, or do we want to make the ones succeed that need to succeed?
So I can speak to that because I fixed that problem. So because we're doing an individual query, we also get individual responses. So we are currently processing it as if you do 10 and like 3 fail, you'll get 7 success messages, or a message that says 7 succeeded and then an error that says you have something that failed. So we to speak to what Alexander said, I did see the batching too, but in my instance, it batched it by 4 at a time instead of 12. So that might be something that we just want to keep for now, unless we want to do some custom error messaging where if you do 10 as a bulk, then you'll get like the response will tell you which ones succeeded and which ones failed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, all right. So best effort. So do best effort on that. Okay, I'll put a note in that as well.
Personally, I don't think it's because of the batching that's occurring and because people really won't be dismissing like thousands of vulnerabilities at once. I don't think this one is like a really high priority.
Okay. And I didn't mean to muddy the conversation by bringing up this. I just was throwing this out there as sort of a potential area there could be back-end work. If you guys agree that it's not necessary or this is something that could be deferred outside of the scope of this issue, that's fine. It doesn't even touch on this question though of sort of the order and how we implement this. So like I said, Andy's got some suggestions around sort of cleaning up around how we deal with the dismissal reasons first, and then adding the mulk dismissal after that, because we'll have all the right reasons in all the right places. Tiago kind of countered that, and I think it has to do with this technical consideration of how we're storing the reason versus the comment today. So if you guys could take a look at, and I don't think we need to answer this in this call. I think you got anyone who has an opinion can share this as a comment in the issue. But Savash, like I said, Savash will be the person from the front end that's working to break this down. And I don't know if we have anyone currently on the back end who's putting attention into this, and we'll be doing that with him. So do you think it's premature to ask our planning breakdown questions of this effort right now? I'll go through them quickly. Are the requirements clear enough to understand the intent of the request, even after the changes that we've talked about? And to add, Andy and Matt, have we updated? Can we update the issue to reflect the confirmation versus some of the decisions that we've been making as part of these discussions? I'm happy to do it, or if you guys want to.
Yeah, I just have to throw the confirmation dialogue in.
And then remove, are we going to remove anything that has to do with the undo? And then if we decide to address that later, create a new issue, does that seem okay? Or would you rather defer it and leave it there?
I can remove it and then we can create like a UX dead issue.
Okay. You do still envision us moving forward and having the undo in the future?
Yeah, once toasts are not the worst, we can start peppering those in. Yeah.
Okay. So the question being, given this change of scope, using the undo instead of, or sorry, the confirmation instead of the undo, are the requirements clear enough to understand the intent of the request? Does anyone? I see a thumbs up.
They're pretty clear.
Yeah,
There's no thumbs down emoji.
There's no thumbs up. You can have thumbs. You actually have thumbs.
There's a shock face emoji. I didn't realize that there was more emojis now.
Oh, there aren't. No, you only have 2.
Oh, really?
You have more? I want more emojis.
Dude.
Yeah, get the newest version.
I need to update.
Zoom updated when I was just about to get on a Zoom call the other day, and I think that's when I got my new emojis.
All right, so I don't hear any big nays. So we're moving on. Do we understand the dependencies of the work to be accomplished? We understand that there's a database change in how we store the reason versus the comment. But is there anything outside of threat management or threat insights that needs to be considered? No. I thought we removed this question. Why didn't that save? Oh, I'm in, because I switched over to a different agenda and I'm reading it off the container security agenda now. Okay. Is this small enough to complete in one iteration? If we were ignoring anything else we might have in an iteration and we were focused on this, do we believe that we'd be able to get this done in one milestone?
I think it could be done in one milestone.
So Ash is thought so as well. I see a thumbs up from Alexander up there. So great. So it sounds like this has passed our planning breakdown, which means that's great. We get to make sure that we've got the implementation issues created and that they move into refinement. We want to sub question for this end-to-end testing. I feel like this is one that having Will have some attention on and make sure that if there are end-to-end tests that they're not breaking, and if there aren't, you can decide if there's coverage that's needed there. Does anyone disagree with that? Cool. And obviously documentation, which should be one of these sub questions, but I only have end-to-end tests listed here. So cool, that's great. Any opinions? I mean, please read Tiago's approach versus Andy's approach, and we need to decide how to move forward with kind of the dependencies between those two issues.
So I know the ultimate end step for the bulk update is to get the same dismissal reason drop down or similar to into the bulk that's similar to what's on the vulnerability page end state. Yeah, so either way. And then question about the toast message. If we remove the undo functionality, does that make any change? Because when you think about using this, you undo or you dismiss 30. If you have dismissals hidden, you don't get that, this happened thing, right, as a user. So they actually are hidden from the UI and kind of go about it and you're like, wait, did that work? So that's why we originally had the toast to kind of say, yep, your action was successful. The undo is kind of a very nice to have. If it's not a toast, it could be an alert, but we need perhaps some way to reaffirm that the action that the user had taken was successful.
Do we not have anything like that today on the bulk dismiss on the dashboards? Just curious how we're handling that currently.
Currently, if you don't have the dismissed filter selected and you dismiss a vulnerability, it's removed, and you get the toast, but no undo functionality.
So there is a toast today that says 3 vulnerabilities were dismissed.
Yes.
Yeah.
We will keep that same toast that'll just show whatever status update was in.
Yeah, we could remove just the undo action from that toast message. I think keeping the modal is still a really good idea because it's a pretty destructive action if you're doing a lot of things, and then you reaffirm with firing the toast.
Makes sense to me. When you say modal, whether it's a pop-up or something that's
Dialogue
kind of today that's in line, you're talking about the confirmation.
The pop-up that says, hey, you're about to dismiss 300 of these things. Yeah.
Okay. In my head, it wasn't a pop-up. It was sort of like inline, but whatever you decide. Yeah. Right.
Okay,
I don't know if that's called out in the design issue. I'm assuming you've got it in your design images, Andy, that we will persist that modal, or sorry, the pop-up. The toast that we have today that says you have dismissed X number of vulnerabilities, but it'll apply to all the status changes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll clean it up, get the undo out of there, throw the dialogue in too to help.
Okay. Did your question get answered, Andy? The original one?
Yeah.
Okay. We're kind of at the end of the call and we never seem to get past this one issue. It's good though, because we did start to talk about the dismissal types and reasons, and these are closely related. So do we have 2 minutes, or we're actually kind of at the end of the call, right? Because we should have stopped a minute ago. Do you guys want to call it a day, or do you want to take a second and look at the dismissal types and reasons?
What do you mean second look? Like,
well, I think we have decided that the bulk update for the dashboard, the first issue for A, has passed planning breakdown. There is some questions about how we're going to do that breakdown, but we haven't agreed about that with 4B and the dismissal types and reasons, because it is a little bit more than just changing what values are in the dropdown. It also includes adding those dismissal types to the modal that's on the pipeline MR view, as well as on the vulnerability details page.
Sorry, I missed that. But you know, we're at time now, so.
If you guys could take a look at the dismissal types and reasons, and we could try and ask any of the planning breakdown questions in advance and try and get this. I mean, we're getting close to 13.7 and we want to get some of this work lined up. So it will be on the agenda for next week. And that being said, I'll share this video and I think we're done. Does anyone else have anything that they wanted to bring up? Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye, friends. Andy, pick a new puzzle.
Puzzle.